Cheers, big ears, and welcome to the Beach Travel Wine Podcast. We are your hosts, Leanne.
And I'm Lyle.
And we are not your usual travel influencers. No, we've decided we want to be travellers that travel under the influence. Okay, good joke?
Reasonable.
Well, there's plenty of more where that come from. So join us as we travel the world, one wine at a time. Hola, mi amor.
Buenos dias, Leanita.
So today we are in our Ocean View podcast studio and we are going to do a bit of a wrap-up of our first series of podcast episodes today.
Does that mean we're in the spare bedroom?
Maybe. It does mean we're in the spare bedroom. You can see the ocean though? Come on.
See?
Yeah. So, yeah, we thought we'd really like to, as I said, do a summary of the places we've been and just give you the highlights. And, maybe there might be a bit of a surprise because neither of us have really discussed what we liked about each place, for this podcast. So you might start us off in Zaragoza, Lyle.
Yeah, well, my favourite part of Zaragoza was the Parque Grande.
The Parque Grande Jose Antonio Labordeta.
I thought I'd let you say that because you say that so much more convincing than I do. But it was just beautiful. It was...
funnily enough, it was on my list as well.
Yeah, well, you could not have it. It was just beautiful, the water features and the area, and even just the walk from the centre of town to the park was beautiful. It was tree-lined. It was a tree-lined promenade. It was just beautiful.
It doesn't always appear on the tourist brochures, in Zaragoza, does it? It's all about the basilica and the old buildings. So if you're heading to Zaragoza, it's a thumbs up from Lyle and I for Parque Grande, see?
Yeah, and I think the Basilica de Nuestra Serena del Pilar, which is on the Rio Ebro, that at night, the money shot, the pic that you took.
Sure, yeah.
And that's the one that's on all the tourism brochures, and it looks better in life than it does on the tourist brochures. And on the tourist brochures, it looks spectacular.
Sure, I agree. I think that's another... I didn't have that on my highlight because I thought you would, because I just picked a couple of things out. But the other one I really liked in Zaragoza was the Tapiceria of El Tubo, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it was very, very different than a lot of the other areas. The food was just outstanding.
It was. It was about 3 blocks or so, isn't it? And on every sort of street, not just a straight row, like the actual blocks. You can go round and round, and they've got little tables out or little courtyards, and it's an experience in every one, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the fact that Zaragoza not being a tourist destination, or especially a non-Spanish tourist destination, we really got a great feel for the locals.
Yeah, that's true.
And we never found out what the smell from the trees were that had that beautiful smell in Zaragoza.
They had the most beautiful trees. So, it was obviously our first sort of stay in Spain, so we were pretty, happy and hyped up and so happy to be back in Spain. So I was wondering if, maybe Zaragoza seemed pretty special because of that. But when I look back at, the photos and think about it, it wouldn't matter when you went to Zaragoza, it was always going to be a highlight, wasn't it?
Sure, and don't forget the fashion.
Oh yeah, the fashion and the shops, but we can't do all the highlights. We've already done a whole podcast on Zaragoza, which was episode 5, if you want to hear more about all those places that we've been to. And there are the show notes and the photos on our website as well. So after Zaragoza, we moved on to the capital of Spain, which, funnily enough, is actually in the centre of Spain. There's that Plaza del Sol with the bear in it. That's actually the midpoint of Spain. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Oh, there you go. So this is, 4th, 5th time we've been to Madrid,
Yeah, and this was my favourite time.
Sure, yeah. We really enjoyed we love Madrid. It has everything, obviously, and once again, I won't go over everything because we've done a whole podcast on 4 days in Madrid. But one of the things, I just picked out a couple of little things that were my favourites just because they're so authentically Madridian, Madrilenian, I think it is. And that was Plaza Santa Ana. Yeah, and we just sort of discovered that on our way home one night, doing what I call a blocky. You know, we're sort of heading home and it's just like, well, let's just go around this block and, you know, all of a sudden there's this gorgeous plaza, yeah?
Is that when we're looking for our last drink? Is that what you call the recce?
The blocky? Well, I thought we were on our way home, but we did probably have a couple of drinks in Plaza Santa Ana.
Oh, that was because it looked so nice.
It did look so nice. And there's a gorgeous hotel with that rooftop bar that, you know, just, you know, wouldn't let us in, but, you know, the whole plaza is surrounded by restaurants, and they've all got chairs outside, haven't they? With, you know, like with covered on the terraces, and so you can go inside, and they're authentic. That's where the one where Ernest Hemingway, you know, was said to have drunk and not was drunk, but had been drinking.
It was one of his favourite watering holes.
Yeah, and that's got bullheads and stuff, and, you know, bullfighting memorabilia, and then there's the modern ones around. So and at the bottom of that plaza was the theatre, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. So it was, and we hadn't been to Plaza Santa Ana before, so I really liked that.
Yeah, I think that the difference was this time. Previously, we'd sort of stayed on the edge of the main part of Madrid,
that's true.
Whereas this time we were right in the centre of it. And my favourite part of the Madrid experience was just taking, you know, following the podcast. Yeah, from
so
when
doing
in Spain.
like doing a authentic Madrid tapas bar sort of night out.
I loved that because it really encouraged us not to be intimidated by the bars or you know, the crowds and
you could be. We said that before.
And Leanne now, you know, her capacity to be able to speak Spanish really does make it much easier to take on those sort of places because, you know, you've got an idea of actually what they're saying to you.
But you don't have to speak Spanish.
But we had a fabulous night that night.
And that's why I've got on my other sort of highlight from Madrid was Casa Tony's.
Yeah, I've got it too.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Just a really nice, we had a fun night, and, you know, we were able to interact with the owners and people there, and I just enjoyed the whole atmosphere of that place. So that made my top one of my top highlights in Madrid.
Well, it was interesting. We went out with some friends last Friday night for Steve's birthday, and they've been to Madrid, I think they said at least 6 times, and they've never been to Retiro Park.
That's right, and is that your other highlight, is it?
That's my other highlight. You can't go past Retiro Park. It is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a theme here, the parks, isn't it? But once again, we've got all the information about, you know, Madrid in podcast in episode 6. We just want to give you the highlights, and it seems to be a bit of a theme, doesn't it? The food, the bars and the park areas, yeah? All right, so let's move on. From Madrid, we went to Toledo. We only had an overnight in Toledo, but a couple of highlights there. Do you want to go first this time so I don't steal your thunder?
I just think that when you pull up in the train, and the train journey is only 30 minutes, and it's so easy to get there. So anybody that goes to Madrid and not go to Toledo, you're really missing out. But just looking up at the actual medieval city on the hill when you first get there is very impressive.
I've got down here views of the city.
Yeah, okay.
And the cathedral, of course.
To me, the cathedral in Toledo was probably my favourite.
I agree. I think it is the nicest cathedral that we saw. But
I don't know whether that was because we actually did a guided tour.
Probably.
Yeah.
But there were parts of that cathedral that no others had, like the monstrance. Is it? That's what they call it.
Sure.
You know, and then also opening in the ceiling that one of the priests did because he wanted more light in, and this whole sort of, big artwork sort of happening in one end of the cathedral as well. That sort of stood out for me. And the big painting of
St. Christopher.
St. Christopher, yes.
Sure.
But you definitely should do a guided tour of that one, because we got a whole lot of information about that. Even the purple hats hanging down.
Yeah, the cardinal hats. Yep.
So that was my highlight.
Very, very authentic. And probably my other favourite part of was the Duf Duf.
Yeah, the bar.
The Boo Bar, which was, right on the edge of the escarpment, overlooking the gorge and
up to that 15th century military academy up on the hill.
And we're sitting there listening to
house music
with the locals, but that was great.
Yeah, so Toledo, so views and cathedral,
sure.
I guess. Yeah. Moving on from Toledo to Neja, which is on the Costa del Sol, in the south of Spain, in Andalusia, and we stayed in Neja for 3 weeks. And funnily enough, we were having a chat before we came home, and because someone had said, maybe you should stay longer because there's so much COVID in Australia, but we were ready to come home, and we both said, look, if we had to stay another week, out of all the places that we've been in Spain, where would we go for a week? And we both instantly said
Neja.
Yeah, Neja, because we really loved it there. And I think staying there for 3 weeks probably helped because we were in total relaxation mode, weren't we? And our apartment was fabulous with the rooftop bar and everything. But we're not here to go over all of that. We've got a podcast all about Neja. It's episode number 8, but we're here to talk about the highlights. And there's so many, so it was really hard. But I actually loved all the views in Neja along the beach, around that Balcón de Europa. And there was a little Italian restaurant, I think it was called Portofino's, that's right. And we went there a few nights simply because, the food was, nice, but the views and watching the sunset there down over Playa de Calahonda, so Calahonda Beach, back over watching the Balcón de Europa was in the Mediterranean was pretty special. That's
the colour of the water and the colour of the sun-setting sky was just outstanding.
I love that, and I'm going to get in before you because I know you're going to say this. Steal your thunder. I don't just have, there's a whole lot of restaurants I could go on and on about, but I just love the whole tapas vibe, or the scene there, because there's a lot of places that just have the free tapas, and it's really good free tapas, and it's very Spanish, and I just love that atmosphere of the streets and going to those tapas bars. I thought that was really brilliant. You'd imagine it just be all touristy and lots of restaurants catering to the English and that sort of the tourists that flock to this area, but they obviously cater for locals as well, and the tapas area was fabulous. I really love that.
Yeah, so did I. I thought, and because we were there for 3 weeks, we also took the opportunity to go and have dinner at a couple of the more upmarket restaurants, and they were obviously more expensive than the tapas bars, but they were still really, really cheap for what you got, and the food was just amazing. My favourite part of Neja,
yes, you did a lot,
was everything, really. But I loved the Burriana Beach. Burriana Beach.
The closest one to us was Playa Calahonda. It was a smaller beach, but you walked a lot further than I did for a couple of days, and you went right down to Burriana Beach, and you can walk all along this, we've got a pathway right on the beach, haven't they, with the restaurants actually sitting on the sand where the beach is.
Yeah, it was just amazing. It was a beautiful beach. And as Lan said, we had lunch there one day, the first day we actually discovered it. and watching the people come in and get their bottle of wine or bottle of champagne with their ice bucket, and then just take it take it from the restaurant and have it sitting
about 50 metres away.
Yeah, on their deck chairs with their umbrellas. I just thought, wow.
And they cook the fish down there on the beach as well.
Yeah.
That was pretty special, wasn't it? Yeah. And nice walking in there, huh?
Yeah, and we met our friends, the English people, Sue and Stan and Steve and Chris. Yeah, and they made our trip.
They had lots of good information.
Yeah, so that was great.
So we would, as I said, it's probably the place that we will definitely go back to when we go back to Spain, Sionol.
Yeah, for a holiday.
Sure, it's a great, as our podcast says, it's episode number 8, Nerja, is this the perfect holiday spot? And the answer is C, I think. So we, did leave Nerja thinking, oh boy, that was nice, like where we're going to go. And we moved on to Sevilla. And we were quite keen to go back to Seville. We'd been there once before and only had a night, and really, I think we might have said in the Seville podcast episode that, we felt we didn't give it much of a chance. So we jam-packed our 3 days in Seville, full of all the activities that one needs to do while one is in Seville. And you want to go with your favourite first? I've put down 2. I'm just doing 2 because there's so many, so I went with the top 2. And what have you got?
Obviously, the history of Seville, being the capital of that area, it was the history which obviously combines with the architecture. And so you've got what do you call it, the triangle, the Seville?
They call it the Golden Triangle, maybe. So you've got all the areas there all close together, like the Alcazar, the real Alcazar, Seville, Plaza de España. Yeah,
and the cathedral. It's just magnificent. And the Barrio Santa Cruz, which is where all the restaurants and bars and that was where we was it Bodega Santa Cruz? Or?
I've just got Bar Santa Cruz.
Yeah, and that was the old bar that had I don't think it had been renovated since the Civil War in the 1930s.
Well, funnily enough, I've got that as one of my highlights.
Okay.
Yeah, I just like to pick out little things that I thought were quite quirky or really Spanish. And Barrio Santa Cruz, as you were just saying, really was. It's got the old timber bars and the timber stools, and the old guys behind the bar. Like what's the word? Like bartering with, not bartering, but having a banter with each other. And you could see it was father and son, and they were just doing their job and laughing, and
it was the funniest, so cheap.
It was so cheap, and the funniest thing was when a tourist came in quite loudly and said, do you make pina coladas? And
the looks on their faces was, do we look like we make pina coladas? Anyway, the bloke got the message and walked straight out. But,
so that was one of my faves, and. The other favourite of mine, because you did mention quite a few things, and the Alcazar, the real Alcazar of Seville is just stunning. It's one of the best I've seen, and the cathedral once again is stunning. It's one of the best I've seen. But Plaza de España for me was an absolute wow. You just walk around the corner, and you just, because we didn't know what to expect. That was it. That was the thing. I hadn't really done any research into it. I heard it was an old World Expo site, and there it was. Just the tiles, the artwork, and the displays, and the canals, and the bridges, and the spires, and the flamenco dancing, and it was amazing. And as we say in our podcast, episode 10, it was so good in the day. We decided to go back at night, and the fountain lit up green, and the as the sun sets and the buildings become golden. It was that for me is one of the highlights, not just of Seville but of the whole trip for me.
Yeah, I think if you ever do go to Spain, you need to go to Sevilla just to get the elegance of Spanish life. It is just so
Spanish.
It's so beautiful. It's like, it blows you away.
Yeah, just try not to go in the middle of summer because people do say
Sure.
it gets a bit hot there. So, all right, so Seville, we moved on to Caceres from there, and we went to this little town because a couple of little reasons, but it was on our way to our Salamanca, which we needed to get to, and so we went to Caceres. Caceres was an interesting little city. It was there were no English speakers at all. That's one of the things I really liked about it because it was very Spanish and very authentic. So obviously not a place where tourists go to. A couple of my highlights were the old town, especially at night. I think this is one of those towns that is spectacular at night, and walking around, the streets, and you come across little restaurants with, just very romantic lighting, and it just had a real fairy tale feeling to it at night time. Caceres, I really loved that. For you, or did you like?
Yeah, like I agree. I think the colour, the sandstone. Most of the buildings were made out of sandstone, so with the artificial light up against the Spanish night sky was just magnificent. I think where we stayed, the Parador, which is the first Parador we stayed in.
Yeah,
that was really special. I thought the food in Caceres that we had was as good as anywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
That we had
El Figo was the restaurant.
Yeah, the restaurant. That was fabulous.
And it was just nice, wasn't it, not to be surrounded by tourists?
Yeah, it was
different. Spanish helped again, didn't it?
Again, and like Caceres. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I think we had 2 nights, that's all you need.
It's only very small.
It's only a very small little place, but it was a nice little stopover on our way from Seville to Salamanca because we don't like to spend too much time travelling, and I'm so glad we went there. And we went from Caceres to Salamanca, as I've said before, and Salamanca was episode 12 in our podcast, and I think this was a favourite of Lyle's of the whole trip, one of the top ones for him, because he loved I'm not going to guess, you're going to tell people, I'm going to say what I liked. I loved, as you know, this is actually another one of those ones that if I had to do a top 5 of things that was amazing on the trip, this would make it, and this is with the Plaza Mayor at night when all the lights come on. The Plaza Mayor itself is one of the most beautiful. And you've got lots of bars and tapas restaurants, and you're sitting there eating, and the crowd's gathering, and there's teenagers playing little games of football, and there's kids running around with the parents, and there's groups of students because it's a university town, sort of sitting on the ground as well, and all the restaurants are full of people, and it just seems to be, you can feel the anticipation growing, can't you?
And La Tuna?
Oh yeah, there's bands playing, and so there's all this stuff sort of happening. It's getting darker, and then all of a sudden the lights in one instant all turn on in this plaza, and people are cheering and clapping, and it's and once again talking about the colours, it's lit up as it's golden, and the sky's that midnight blue, and I know I'll go on and on about it, but it's just, to me, it's one of those things that'll stay with me for a long, long time. And the other thing I really loved about Salamanca, and I just alluded to it, was the whole city at night. There's a lot of buildings, historic buildings in Salamanca. It's got a lot of old university buildings, and it's got the old and the new cathedral, and it's got the La Casa de Las Conchas, which is the house of shells, and all along the big wide paseos that you walk along, and they're all lit up at night. And it's actually called the Golden City, Salamanca, and that's certainly a highlight for me was walking around there, looking at all of that. What about you, Dom?
Well, again, like most of Spain, there wasn't not much not to like.
Yeah, we were doing highlights.
Yeah, I know. Look, Salamanca for me was magnificent. One of my highlights was the 2-hour history tour.
You mean 5 hours?
Yeah, well, we were booked from 8 till 10. We were still sitting in the Plaza Mayor with our guide at 1 o'clock having a drink, 1 o'clock in the morning. So he obviously enjoyed it too. But yeah, just doing that tour, finding out all about the history was magnificent. And probably my other favourite was in the morning, going for a walk along the Tormes River. It's a beautiful river,
and there's lots of flowers along the way and trees, and they've got a path all the way and a bike path. And you saw something special one day, didn't you?
Yeah. I saw the bullfighting school, so the teenagers learning how to bullfight, and look, it was just
there wasn't actually a whole bull. It was like a wheelbarrow with a bull's head, and they were all dressed up in their proper gear and had the capes and everything, So
yeah, and I think that again we had beautiful weather there. It wasn't too hot, so to go for a beautiful morning walk, brilliant sunshine next to the river. Don't get much better than that.
And the location of our apartment was pretty special in Salamanca as well. So there's a whole lot more information on Salamanca in episode 12. But we did really rate that Salamanca, didn't we? We loved it. So we went from Salamanca to Burgos, which was another place that we were recommended because we've got friends that sort of come from Burgos, and we had 3 nights in Burgos. And I'll start with my favourite, because I think it'll be different to yours, because I loved when we got there was a massive parade on, which was a bit of a nightmare at the beginning and turned out to be amazing. So it's probably one of the worst times of being in Spain, but also one of the best. And once again, that's in episode 13. You can hear all about that. But my favourite, besides the parade, was the Paseo Espolón, which is the beautiful pathway all along the little river there, and the trees, and just how beautiful that paseo was, because we like to walk, as you know, and this one was just beautiful. Their trees are growing up and they're joining in the middle as an arch, but they actually graft them together. So they're like and then the side branches they put together as well. So it's like this big living tunnel and shade archway and protection, and it's beautiful in the day with all the tiles of the promenade, and then once again they light it up at night. Beautiful there along the river. I really loved that part of Burgos. What about you, hon? What have you got?
Well, unsurprising, my favourite parts of Burgos revolve around having some food and a drink.
Food and wine.
And probably more so the emphasis on the wine. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we, the owner of the apartment that we stayed with, he had a family winery, which was a little town out of Burgos. It was about a 40-minute
bus ride?
Local bus ride to Lerma. Mm-hmm. And the winery was just a 5-minute drive from the actual town, and the winery was the Palacio de Lerma, and we had got a real education on Spanish wine.
Yeah. Thanks to Romero for that.
Yeah, and Romero was just brilliant.
Yeah.
We eventually, once the wine tour had finished, we all went to lunch together.
Yeah, that was nice too.
And that was magnificent. And the bar that Patricia and Carlos recommended.
This isn't in Lermos, this is back in Burgos.
Yeah,
that's
Burgos.
On my list here, look.
Yeah, it was...
Casa Panchos.
Casa Panchos, and the owner there...
Pepe.
or Jose, whichever you prefer to call him. That was just an experience. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun.
That's a real authentic tapas bar, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so well run.
And we ate food there. We don't even know what it was to this day. But we were brave. We ate it. So Burgos is you know, it has lots of really nice shopping too. Not that it was a highlight, but, you know, I just sort of remembered that it was, you know, walking around looking at the shoe shops was pretty nice. We didn't buy anything, though. So Burgos, lots more information about that. In episode 13, you can actually hear that we walked part of the Camino de Santiago, and the cathedral there is all related to that. So, but we are only doing highlights, so, you know, you'll have to go back and listen to that one. Next, we moved on to La Rioja. We stayed in the capital, Haro. Yes, and this was episode 14 of a podcast, and we stayed in Haro for 4 nights. And what have you got highlights-wise for me there, Lyle? I know what you're going to say.
Well, it was almost the highlight of the whole trip, LaGuardia.
Yeah. So tell us what LaGuardia is.
LaGuardia is a medieval city that's perched on a hill. It's about 600 metres high, and it is...
It's a little village which is 2-3 streets wide, surrounded by a beautiful path and parkway on the outside of the city walls, with views over the 600-odd bodegas in the La Rioja area.
Yeah, it's like a children's storybook. You know, it's...
Only that it's for adults because it's got wineries.
yeah. Like, it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
And we did a wine tour there as well, which was absolutely fascinating.
But I agree with you. There's not just one part of LaGuardia. Like, you know, we went out for lunch and we did the wine tour and all that was great, but just LaGuardia itself. And interestingly, when you tell, you know, Spanish people that you went to LaGuardia, they haven't heard of it. So it's not a well-known place to go to, but it is fairy tale-ly. It's a new word I just made up. Beautiful. Just, I loved everything about LaGuardia.
And we wouldn't have known about LaGuardia apart from your new best friend, Jose.
Jose Taxiaro. Yeah, he did. He definitely gave us the
heads up there.
The heads up there. So I love that. And the other thing that I loved about being in La Rioja and in Haro, which is the capital, as I said, was our accommodation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got that too.
Oh, have you?
Yes.
It was Los Augustinos, and it was built, I think, in about the 13th century, the building we stayed in, and it was originally a monastery, and then it became a military hospital, and then it was a jail, and I think it was something else I can't remember, before actually in 1989 becoming luxury accommodation.
Yeah.
And you can imagine it being all those things. It's got this big sort of courtyard area in the middle and great big arches, and there's actually on the sandstone, people have carved their names into the blocks of sandstone, haven't they? So I don't know if they're like the pet prisoners or the people from the hospital, but yeah, it's pretty cute. No, not cute, but pretty amazing to see all those names sort of scratched in.
And the facilities were magnificent.
And it was good because that was when we had a 42-degree day and we had a lovely, great, big, cool room. And it's right there in the centre of town, and a 10-minute walk to the the station.
Estacion Bodegas?
Yeah, where all the bodegas are in town. So.
And that's why we actually went to there to check out the bodegas for the wine, and that didn't disappoint.
It didn't. No.
And they've been there since the 1800s, a lot of them, but they've obviously been developed over time, and they were magnificent. And the wine, I gotta say,
well, that's true.
Was pretty spectacular.
But we're not going to tell you any more because this is a highlights show, a highlights package, Lyle, as you might, and that is episode 14, all about La Rioja, Haro, the capital, and LaGuardia. So we're down to our last 2 podcast episodes, or where we stayed, highlights episodes, and the next one was episode 15, all about Oviedo in Asturias, up in northern Spain. And I know that there'll be absolutely no doubt that Lyle has the exact same highlights as me, because there's one day there that was an absolute standout. See or no?
See.
And you want to go with that one? Am I right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was our day trip, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Covadonga.
Yeah. So,
or the Picos de Europa mountain range.
But first was the stop at Canga de Onis at the Roman bridge there. Wow. Honestly, go to the website and check out the show notes for episode 15 where all the photos are, or as I haven't said before, but I've said in previous episodes, Instagram at Beach Travel Wine. If you go to the highlights up the top, story highlights, and go to the one that's Oviedo, and you will see the videos that I took. It's worth doing that, even if you have to pause the podcast and go and do it, go and have a look, because it's just a wow, wasn't it? I'm not going to describe it too much because, I could go on and on, but we had a beautiful day and the water was still and the reflections was beautiful and the mountain range behind was, so clear, just perfect spot, that one. And then from there, we moved up the windy road, past the cows and the goats and me having a bit of a heart attack to arrive at, in the Europa, Picos de Europa National Park at, was it 1,900 metres or something? Like some...
Yeah, 1,930 metres was the highest peak, but the lakes...
so we arrived at the lakes of Covadonga.
Yeah. They're 1,000 metres. Mm-hmm. Lake... What can you say?
Lake Enol and Lake Asina.
Correct.
Yeah, and they're glacial lakes, and they're just there in the mountains. And once again, this perfect day... In the background, there's snow-capped mountains. If you stand still, you can hear the bells tinkling of the cows walking around. The mountains are reflecting off the glacial water. The grass is so green, it's so lush, and I don't know. We need to find other words, but magical, amazing, gorgeous.
And this is in northern Spain, so... The actual countryside is totally different. It's like being in another country.
Yeah, it's lush and green.
Yeah, compared to Andalusia, where we'd been. But yeah, like it was... And then after the lakes, we went down to the village of Covadonga.
Well, Ivan said, we'll just go and have a look at... we'll take you to the Covadonga Cathedral now. We're like, okay, great, another church, fine. Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it.
No.
It was... And Leanne... has got some absolutely fabulous photos from looking from the sanctuary, which is the cave where the little church is,
so we're up on
across
the side
to
of the
the basilica, and it is amazing.
This basilica sits on the edge of an escarpment. It's got the mountains behind it, with these dark green forest trees, and the basilica itself is almost a pink colour. I don't know, it's not painted, it's the natural colour of the stone there, and it's, wow. We had no idea we would be seeing something so amazing that day, and it's one of my favourite days, not just of Oviedo, but also of the whole trip. And as Lyle said, go and have a look at the pictures there. So it's a bit hard for me to beat that highlights of Oviedo. I've just got one other highlight I'd like to chuck in there.
Go for it. I know what it's going to be.
Do you?
Viva la España.
España. The Tuna Band. Yeah, we had a really fun day.
Once again. While having a drink.
Yeah. Oh, just the La Tuna de Oviedo is, a university band, or traditionally they were. I think we tell you all about it in episode 15, but there's these 10 guys all playing instruments. They're all so talented. They're all singing, and they're just laughing. They're having the best time, and you just wouldn't find that anywhere else in the world except Spain. I think we just loved it.
Yeah. Well, everywhere through Oviedo, from the bagpipe marching bands that we saw, one in the middle of the city, another one with a wedding, to heavy metal band in the courtyard of a convent, to a pop band in one of the plazas. Like, Oviedo is a class act.
It is, and that's not even talking about the what do you call it, the Sidra and the cider and all that sort of stuff. So yes, Oviedo, 2 thumbs up. Last but not least was episode 16, Santander, which is again in northern Spain on the Cantabrian Sea. It's it's the capital of Cantabria, and we arrived in Santander in Semana Grande, which is Party Week. We had no idea, and they haven't had it for 3 years.
Because of COVID.
And it was a full-on week, but we're not going over everything because, as I said, all that information's in our podcast. But let's go with a couple of highlights. Lyle, do you want to kick it off?
Probably our day trip to Camillus.
Yep, Camillus, see.
That was magnificent. That had, the main part of that was the university. Mm-hmm. Historical university with the wood carvings of the Noah's Ark.
Sure. And that's on top of a hill, sort of overlooking the beach, and then back down over the town. Which was pretty nice.
And it was this particular day was a little bit overcast, and there was a bit of misty rain,
which added to it, I thought.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the photos Leanne took, I think it enhanced the photos, and it also had the house of Gaudi.
Yeah, Capriccio de Gaudi.
Yeah, and
that's actually one of my highlights too, just because it's so different.
Yeah, it was magnificent. And the actual little town itself, although it's only small, was beautiful.
Yeah, very, once again, that cobblestone streets and history and big mansions because, people, the aristocrats built their holiday homes there because it's on the beach as well, Camillus.
Yeah, well, the Marquis of Camillus was one of the wealthiest men in Spain, and he made his money in
South America.
Yeah, in Cuba actually,
but you can hear all about that in episode 16. Sorry, we're doing highlights, honey.
Sorry. But what I was about to say is there's a lot of money in Camillus, and
sure.
So yeah.
So the Capriccio de Gaudi was just one of my favourites as well. Is a house that Antonio Gaudi designed before he was actually famous.
Correct.
So that's what makes it pretty special, and it's Capriccio means
weird.
So I guess that fits, but it's just covered in ceramic tiles. That are either a sunflower or a green tile. It has its own turret that you can go up, and it has a greenhouse in it which gets all the heat of the day, and as well as all the the outside, which is stunning. You can walk through the inside, which has the timber features around the windows and some furniture, and then the garden was designed by Gaudi as well, and it's still in its original design, and you can wander around that garden. It's not very big, but wow, yeah, that was an absolute favourite of mine. And it's only 45 minutes from Santander as well. So if you've got a car, you could easily drive. We did a day trip, which I'd certainly recommend doing from Santander. Next highlight, Lyle?
Santander itself, the town of Santander.
Oh, I don't know you can do that.
Oh, it was magnificent. Where Santander is right on the Bay of Biscay. Yeah. So we stayed in a hotel. We're on the 7th floor, and our view from that hotel was basically the bay. Mm. And
that's the Bay of Santander, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's goes
part
out.
of the Bay of Biscay. I see what you mean. Yeah. It's got little islands, hasn't it, with little lighthouses on them and that sort of thing. So was that a highlight of yours, the boat trip?
Yeah, we did a cruise as well, which was on the second last day. I think we were there, and once again we jagged it. The weather, you couldn't have got better weather for the cruise, and just
it's really nice being in that boat, looking back up at the city and the Magdalena Palace and all of that. So.
Yeah, and the cruise itself, we sort of did it just on the whim, and it was so cheap. Like, I think it was 11 euro or something.
And they sell beer. And
they did, and the beer was freezing. It was
what you need.
It was really great. Like, it was Santander. It was a modern city. It's a lot more modern than.
Well, it got burnt down in the early 1900s. Sometimes.
Yeah. So they basically rebuilt it. But
it's a city of two sides. One side's the bay where we stayed, and then the other side's the beaches, or the main beach area. And you can walk all the way around the headland.
Yeah, which is part of my favourite part of the day. Was every morning I took a walk from, it was about 4.5 k each way, and I loved it. And again, the weather was just beautiful.
Yeah.
My favourite part was the Sardinero.
Oh, El Sardinero, the beach.
Yeah, the beach there, and we had a beautiful lunch there at a Michelin star place. Once again, more to do with wine and food. But we had a fabulous day, and that particular beach, I said to Leanne that, you know, we live not far from Noosa Beach. We live, we've been to all the beaches in Australia, but I've never seen a beach as
busy,
elegant.
Okay, elegant.
As that beach's backdrop, with the classic buildings, architecture, and the beautiful white casino, and it was just magnificent. And again, the food there was spectacular.
And as you can see, Lyle's a fan, so if you want to hear all his fanboy stuff about Santander, you can go to episode 16 and listen. But I want to add another favourite. Can I do that? Sure. I'm the boss. I'm the producer.
You're in charge. Yeah,
correct.
I'm just the talent.
There was this one moment where we were walking early on in the week, and we went to the Magdalena Peninsula, and we came across a display of boats, and one of them was like a raft, and on top of the raft it had a little house, you know, and it was a full size. And I walked behind it to take a photo, and there's a plaque there. And the plaque said, "This is La Bolsa. It sailed from Ecuador in 1970, took 600 and something days, and arrived at its final destination at Mooloolaba, the Sunshine Coast, Queensland." And that blew me away, because we live on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, and I was standing in the northern capital of Cantabria, looking at this amazing raft, and I had no idea it was linked to where we lived, and that was fascinating. So we did a lot of research into that, didn't we? And it was called La Bolsa, and it makes sense now, because there's La Bolsa Park at Mooloolaba, there's La Bolsa Park, you know, Budrum. It was a really big deal back in the 70s, and they so that was a highlight, just because of the connection back to where we live. You know, you don't expect to see that. And the reason it was in Santander was because the captain of that ship was born in Santander. Yeah, so I was very impressed with that. So that was episode 16, and you can hear more about that trip.
And we haven't even mentioned
what.
The Semana Grande. I know you mentioned it, but you didn't say what it was and what it included.
Well, I didn't, because that wasn't on my highlights. That's in the episode 16. But go, you know, quickly then, go for it. You give everything away, they won't need to listen to the real one. But yeah, Semana Grande was pretty good. Go for it then. Off you go.
It just had every form of entertainment you could think of, and 90% of it free, from circuses to street performers to large bands and international bands to
flamenco dancers, DJs on the corners.
Yeah, DJs on the corner.
Street performers.
So the vibe of Santander that particular week was absolutely fabulous.
It was, and they had pop-up restaurants and pop-up bars, and you know, just people everywhere. It was almost like everyone in Spain was on holidays, Spanish people, and they headed to Santander because they were going to have the best party week of all time, weren't they? It was noisy, it was fun, it was amazing, and that happens every week except for COVID in that July week. So if you're going to go to Santander, I'd certainly recommend that. So, all right, Lau, we're going to finish up our highlights episode with the top 3. Oh, he's looking at his notes thinking, what's she going to ask me? Ha, ha, ha. See, a little surprise. The top 3 places in Spain for you to have a wine. It's all about beach travel wine. So your top 3 favourite, could be a restaurant, could be where the view is, can't just be a town. It has to be a specific spot. Oh, he's thinking. Well, while he's got his thinking face on, do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Sure. All right, so it's a bit unfair because I did prepare one earlier. My top 3 places to have a wine, it doesn't mean it's my favourite places, but to actually sit and have a wine, which is what we like to do, was in LaGuardia at the winery that we did a tour of, Palacio de Prima, wasn't it? And Primacea. And I'm sitting at the window with a beautiful red wine, looking out down over the valley, over the Bodegas, and you can see the Cantabrian mountains in the background, and some big bodegas sort of, just at the bottom of those mountains. It'll be a view, drinking wine that I'll never forget. And can I keep going?
Yeah. Sure.
My second place that I really loved having a wine was, don't look at my notes, look at your own, is Plaza Mayor in Salamanca. That was, just as I said before, because of just that whole atmosphere of the crowd and, that when the lights come on, that was just amazing. And my third favourite place in all of Spain, this trip to have a wine, this might surprise you, I think, was actually in Neja. Just at that Portofino's restaurant, as I mentioned before, just, simply because of the atmosphere and the views.
Sure.
So have you got anything for me?
I agree with all those places. They were all magnificent, but I've probably got 3 different ones.
Okay, let's go then.
My favourite place to sit and have a wine was at that Michelin star restaurant in Santander.
I see, he's a Santander fanboy.
Yeah, I am. I thought that was the wine was excellent. The food was brilliant, and we're sitting there overlooking Playa de Centenero, and it was just magnificent.
Okay, number 1.
So
I'll
that's
give you that.
Number 1. Number 2 is probably sitting in that little cafe, or outside that little cafe in Oviedo for 2.5 hours listening to La Tuna. Yeah, I got to say that I had the best time.
Mm-hmm.
I
don't know that counts because you had beer, not wine.
Yeah, well,
all right.
If we had stayed any longer, I would have been on the wine.
Okay, I'll give you that.
So that was
number 2.
Fabulous.
Yeah, Oviedo, La Tuna, see,
and again probably Palacio del Mar.
Ah, okay.
The wine tour that we had with, and it was probably more about
the atmosphere and Ramiro. Yeah, okay.
And Ramiro was just such a lovely guy, and part of that, him taking us to that restaurant and having some of his rosé overlooking the wineries again.
Okay, yeah.
And he was such a nice man.
Well, that's a nice way to finish our highlights podcast. Everything we've talked about today, you can go back and look through Series 1 podcast. I'll be there. You can go to the show notes at beachtravelwine.com for episode 18 and get a summary and some pictures of all of the places we've talked about. As I said, go to the Instagram at Beach Travel Wine and look at the story highlights. But please, feel free to send us a message, an email or a message. We love getting those, and we've been getting a few, which is really nice and makes us feel like someone's listening besides, our kids.
Yeah. And okay, so when's the next one? Where are we going next?
Oh well, that's a very good question, and
you should know because you've told me that we're going to Tarragona.
Oh, there we go.
On the east coast of...
next, see, you don't hold anything back, do you?
No, why would you?
He's an oversharer.
Yeah.
Next podcast, yes, I guess you'd call it Series 2. I don't know, we haven't really had a break, so we'll, is Tarragona. But, so tune in for that one. That'll be episode 19, I guess.
And I love Tarragona.
Adios, mis amigos.
Adios.